Hey, Entrepreneur Nation, welcome back to Entrepreneur 101 from concept to exit and everything in between. Listen, I've got an amazing guest with us today. We're either going to laugh, cry, or get a hell of an education. We have got Phyllis Williams-Strawder with us, joining us from Texas today. And let me tell you about Phyllis. She's otherwise known as the Getto Country Brandmother. She's the owner of Brandmas House. That is a personal branding company. She's a podcast host. She's an author. She's a cook. She's a cigar aficionado. She loves her bourbon. Hey, like I tell you, we're going to learn lots of shit here tonight. But she is a certified brand strategist, a life and business coach, a psychology marketing specialist, and I'm sure we're in for a great show today. So with that being said, Phyllis, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, sweetheart. I am so excited about this. It's like, oh, I get to talk shit for real. So I'm ready to go.
That's right. And you know what? The more shit you want to talk, the better with me. That's okay. We're rated explicit on the podcast for a reason. So don't feel like you got to hold back. Just be the Phyllis that I know you are. So
you got it.
Listen. Mm-hmm. I know you and hubby have had a few successful businesses in your time here, but I want to talk a little bit about, pre-entrepreneur. Tell me about who was Phyllis growing up, and what kind of got her to this point. Go in as much depth as you want, as little as depth as you want, but let's find out, who was Phyllis when she was growing up in the busy streets of LA, I think you were born in, correct?
Busy streets. Oh my goodness. Okay, I'm gonna get it real. And I usually don't tell this part of my story, but I grew up very insecure. Back then I was very skinny. They used to call me olive oil, but I was also very tall for a girl.
Okay.
So I had all these insecurities. My family talked about me, which did not help. And as I grew, and mind you, I grew up in a time where women depended on men for income and and all this kind of stuff.
Right.
So I love my family. I love my aunts, my mom and all them. But a dude was like, let him take care of you. And with that mindset and with insecurities tied to it, I tell people I gave myself away to dig, dick, and dig because Tom and Harry were busy. I didn't know what else to do.
Right. Yeah.
Because I didn't know what else to do to get somebody to like me, to love me, to make me feel more secure about myself. And so I just went through life like that. And because of that, I was socially awkward, but people thought I was standoffish. And they were like, oh, right. She's just a bitch. She thinks and it was never that.
Right.
Usually it was my insecurities that kept me from talking to someone, but they took it however they took it. Yeah. It's like, okay, I'm gonna be that bitch today because I don't know what else to say to you.
Yeah.
And just getting over that hurdle took a whole lot of years. And I think the final hurdle came when I married my husband, my second husband. My first husband was a practice marriage.
The practice run, right?
It was a practice marriage.
Right.
But yeah, it was not easy. I have a hard time remembering my childhood. I don't necessarily say it's bad because I wasn't like, well, I used to fight, but I wasn't really beaten or all of the trauma.
Yeah.
But there's nothing that I could say that was a happy childhood. It was just the average childhood. It just is what it is.
Right.
So.
Yeah. It sounds like you and I really have, kind of the same experience growing up because I was kind of the same, right? I had a skin condition covered 90% of my body. So I was very withdrawn and, kept to myself and just like you, people thought, well, you're a bit of a snob, you're a bit of a dick, whatever. Right. And it was just because, it's just because, I'm a scared kid inside that doesn't want to be found out my insecurities and stuff like that. And sometimes, people can take that the wrong way and it can lead you down the wrong path, and I won't say the wrong path, but a path that, it's a path, right? But we always seem to find our way around and the same too. Like when I think back, my mom passed away at an early age and it's like, I don't really have a lot of those memories as well. And I wonder if it's because there wasn't somebody there to keep reminding you of the shit, right? That hey, do you remember when? No,
I really don't.
No, that's amazing. So life, got good on the second round of marriage here.
Yes. And yes, I still like my husband after 20-some years.
And that, you know what, you deserve a medal for that yourself because, and that's something I don't think a lot of the younger generation is going to see either, is those long-term relationships, right?
Yeah.
We live in a throwaway society, and that includes
Yes.
relationships, and that's
Yeah.
too bad.
Swipe.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, Sonia's parents, my other half, her parents have been together like 50 years.
Oh, wow.
And it's like, I couldn't imagine 50 years of anything, never mind, being with the same person.
Yeah.
You just don't see it anymore. So,
You don't.
we definitely develop a lot differently nowadays. But, so let's talk about, I know before you got into what you're doing now, there was some cooking involved somewhere. There was a restaurant.
Oh,
There was a catering
God.
company. There was some
Yes.
barbecue sauce or some
Yes,
damn
there
thing
was some
involved. So,
barbecue sauce involved.
so let's talk about. But that kind of puts you on this path, and
It did. It did.
there's something you had that I read and that you had said that I found very interesting. But let's start down this path because
Mhm.
it kind of led to where you were. So let's talk about the restaurant and the
Oh
catering
my
businesses
goodness.
and that.
I put my foot in my mouth. That's yeah, into it because I remember my first day with my husband. If you want to call it a date, yeah, we're
Yeah.
gonna call it the first date.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
But from that time even till now, cooking has always been my husband's love language. He's one of those, and this for y'all Bill Cosby haters, keep it to yourself. But he's one of those that used to get in the kitchen and do that Bill Cosby thing while he was chopping shit up and
Yeah.
throwing
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
smoke
The
on
little.
and dancing.
Yeah.
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 And so that was his get down. And it was like, I always knew he should have been cooking for a living. I didn't know about the whole kind of toxic environment that exists in the restaurant industry
Right.
then, but I always knew he should have been cooking for a living. So it started out with something as simple, because I grew up on Texas barbecue the way my mom and them did it.
Right.
And Neil calls up making me some ribs one day and put that shit in some beer. And then I'm like, what the
You don't do that in Texas, is that?
You're supposed to mop the meat and all of this kind of stuff. They don't do that anymore. But yeah, that's what I grew up on.
Right.
And so he started learning how to barbecue essentially on the internet.
Okay.
He met a great bunch of guys, the barbecue brethren, and they would call my house, whether they were drunk or sober. How's your brisket? How's your ribs? And all of this kind of stuff. And I asked him one day, no, I think this was before, because he always blamed it on what's dude's name. I can't even think of his name, but he cooked some type of meat in a flower pot.
Oh, okay.
And he smoked the meat in a flower pot. He just took it, turned it upside down, put some coals, a grate and all this, and Neil was hooked ever since.
Wow.
And so he decided that he was going to start doing barbecue competitions, which I'm fine with, until it started cutting into my shoe money. It was like, dude, competitions are expensive. And that turned into, you know what? And then because they constantly practice, believe it or not, I don't care how good a competitive barbecue person is, they will practice their cook over and over and over and over,
Right.
years and years and years. They continue to practice.
Yeah.
This just gets expensive.
Wow.
So I'm like, you're gonna have to start selling some of this meat, because he was always practicing chicken and I was about to grow rings and fly away.
Right.
But it was like, you know what, we had to start selling stuff. So we started selling these things from our dining room table. We would come home from our jobs on our lunch hour, throw some stuff in some styrofoam boxes, drop them off at Kaiser, drop them off at his job, my job, go back to work.
Oh, wow.
And
Okay.
and so it started literally, that's where it literally started. And then I put my foot in my mouth again. Baby, do you want to do this for a living? He said, yeah. So what I do, I go out and I find out, let's start with some farmers markets. We can't get in no restaurant yet. We don't have the knowledge. We're going to start at the farmers market. If you know anything about LA and Watts, we in Watts at the Watts Farmers Market trying to sell barbecue just before Thanksgiving.
I'm guessing that didn't go over very well.
It did not. It did not. But it lit a fire in both of us, because he was just very happy. He was out here doing his thing. He was cooking. Our daughter was with us because she was real small then. She was not even really 2. And it was like my mom and them, they started making desserts and they sat across from us and we were just out here hanging out as a family, selling some food.
Yeah.
And when I asked Neil, like, how serious are you about this? We had made the decision that he would keep his job, because right back then he was what is it, licensed banker or whatever, the
Okay.
ones with all the licenses to sell stocks and all. See, I don't even
Yeah.
remember that shit anymore.
Yeah.
But but he was a licensed banker. But we said, okay, you hold on to your job until Ashton, which is my stepson, so Ashton turns 18, so you can finish paying child support and all that shit.
Right.
And then we'll see about you quitting your job. But it happened so quickly. Because we got written up, he was featured in the LA Times. So that was in November that we started that. Ashton's birthday wasn't until August of the following year. Neil ended up quitting his job in February because we got that popular that quickly.
Really? Wow.
So we were doing multiple farmers markets. We still hadn't opened a brick and mortar yet, but we started doing multiple farmers markets, some good, some bad. We would switch it up and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But we were doing our thing. And we did this for 5 years till we realized our asses was old and raggedy and we need to stop setting up and breaking shit down.
Yeah, right. Let's just put some roots down and
oh my God.
Yeah.
Yes. And that's when the first brick and mortar came. And the second one came is because we were at home one day and Neil made me we used to make something called pig candy, thick sliced maple bacon covered in cayenne brown sugar. And we smoke it till we make bacon batter. Okay, well, he made me some of these at home. I said, oh, baby, our next spot is going to be a breakfast spot. It took a minute. I think we were open. Our first restaurant was open for about 2.5 years. Next thing you know, here comes Big Mrs. Morningwood serving barbecue for breakfast. Nice. Everything, we got up in the morning and everything was smoked. And that was our second location. And we were talking about opening third. We were going to do all these different concepts. And we were talking about doing a third. And something in me is like, what? This not my house. This is not my thing. Right. I love hanging out with my people in the restaurant. I love serving people. I love watching them enjoy the food, but this is not my shit. I don't want to do this.
Right.
And as much as I support my husband, and I hung in there, we did this for 10 years together. I'm like, dude, I finally had to tell, I fired and quit so many times, fake, that I had to say it for real. It's like, I think I'm really done this time. I don't want to do this.
Right.
He said, well, baby, what are you going to do? And at this time I had already gotten my life coaching certification. I was 3 deep into becoming a master coach, because you have to get all these different versions of business coaching to become a master coach. And I was 3 in. And I was like, well, I'm going to go out and I'm going to do this business coaching thing. He said, well, you go ahead. I got this. My husband doesn't do employee very well.
He's a cook. He's not a boss, right?
He's a cook. He's like, let me do
or a
my
chef,
thing,
I guess.
And whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
He said chefs wear white and can stay clean. He can't stay clean.
Right. Okay, good.
But, I was truly done. And he did it for a while by himself. But I know my husband's like, I need my wife to do this with me, because we can fuss at each other and still stay married.
Right. Yeah.
Because it would be sometimes when the staff would come, your husband. It's like, why are you telling me something I already know?
Yeah.
And my response became, you know what? Just go wash that bowl so I can stay married today. That's all I need you to do. Go get the meat off the pit so I can stay married today. I'm just trying to stay married today. Fuck tomorrow. We gonna stay married today.
Yeah, one day at a time.
One day at a time. And so forth. And so being that person, being the invoice person, being the person that dealt with all the catering shit, and it was just, I don't want to do this. I promise you, I'm probably one of the few people that love pushing paper. I like to write out some stuff. Let me sign my name on a big ass check.
Yeah.
But in the food industry, I was not happy.
Right.
And I told somebody recently, it's like, I felt like I was drowning in his dream.
Yeah. I saw you had said that.
Yeah. And it became a thing for me. So saying that I was done was one of the hardest things, because like I said, dude, I got you.
Right.
I'm your ride or die when ain't nobody else going to be there.
Yeah.
But I could not do this anymore. And so it got to the point I started getting asked to go places to speak and all that kind of stuff. I was like, baby, I think I want to travel with my business. I want to do something different. And I know my husband. I know him. He ain't gonna let me go nowhere far, like going down the street or whatever. But if I said I'm getting on the plane, where you think you're going without me?
Yeah.
So when I told him that I wanted to start traveling because of my business, I said, what you gonna do? He said, I'm gonna roll with you. And we had this conversation. We made the decision in June. We put our house on the market to sell as is. We put out there on our social media, our last day was going to be July 3rd. By August 1st, we had moved to Oregon. It was that fast.
Wow.
because we were done, or I
Yeah.
was done. And my husband's like, shit, I ain't gonna stay here. You ain't leaving me. And so it's been a gradual pursuit where it went from business coaching to when I got that 4th certification, understanding like just doing brand coaching.
Right.
And I realized looking back, the more I studied coaching, the more I realized how many millions we left on the table when we had our restaurants. I don't know if that would have made me stay, but I now work to make sure people don't leave millions on the table.
Right.
Because people truly don't understand the importance of branding. They think it's like following all these experts and thinking that you're going to copy a corporation and do the shit. It's not that.
Right.
Finding your own space in your own way. Fuck some competition. I don't even care about them.
Yeah.
But how you build your brand means that you don't have to work so hard for the sale. And then you can actually raise your prices based on the brand you built. Sweetie, your positioning and all of those things, all of that is tied to your brand. You're messing with your money if your brand is not together. So now everybody named Mom out here, I am my brand. Whatever. I ain't gonna cuss at you, but I'm like, it's the whole thing.
Right.
But it was taking that and going from understanding that level of branding to understanding brand strategy. How do you get strategic about your shit?
Right.
And it's like, man, and I don't want to, no shade on companies, but I'm not trying to do B2B. That's not my thing. I don't even think it is a thing, because at the end of the day, I'm talking to a person.
Right.
I'm not talking to a fucking business.
Yeah.
And so I decided to pursue individuals that needed better brands. And then somebody said, well, I'm going to send somebody to you for personal branding. I'm like, I don't do personal branding. They're like, yes, you do. I never saw what I did as personal branding because I do it somewhat from a life coaching standpoint. I get to use my life coaching to help build better brands because, sweetie, I could give a fuck, because what I learned about branding is that it's all about people pleasing.
Okay.
You got to go out here. They tell you to go and do the research, understand your audience. And
Yeah.
what about me? What about the person behind the brand? They've lost their way because they're so busy tiptoeing around a fucking customer because they got $1 in their hand.
Right.
That it's like, I'm doing all this shady shit that I never thought I'd do. And it's not necessarily shady, but it makes me feel shady.
Yeah. You're not living to your true values. You're doing what you need to do to make a buck.
There you go.
Right.
And so I decided, you know what? When they said I do personal branding, I went all in. Fine, I do personal branding. Let's get this shit done. Because I want you to go make all your money. I'm not promising you 6 and 7 figures.
Yeah.
I'm promising you what you work for. But
Right.
I promise you, if you position yourself in such a way, you're going to make that and probably more.
Right.
But it's how do you want to grow and scale this?
Yeah. And we're going to talk about that. So I wanted to ask you, because you said, if you knew then what you knew now about, leaving millions of dollars on the table, maybe you would have stayed. Do you think you would have, though? Because like you said, it wasn't your dream.
No.
Right?
No.
So,
but maybe I could have hired better. I could have hired someone to do and be and all the things. Because it was just, like I said, it was never for me.
Right.
It was never for me. And I don't even really think it was for Neil. Cooking is for Neil. Owning a restaurant, not so much.
Right. Yes. Because, and it's funny because, people will say, and I kind of agree with this somewhat. If you can do what you love, you'll never work another day in your life. But sometimes doing what you love and turning it into a business now takes away that enjoyment, because there's all that other shit that adds onto it. I got to make sure customers are happy. I got to make sure the bills are paid. It's like, this isn't fun anymore. Yeah. I don't enjoy that aspect of it. So sometimes taking what you love and turning it into a business can turn that love into a job, and now you hate Mondays. So, right? And you don't want to hate Mondays. Mondays is a 7 of our life. So you know what? You want to enjoy all of it. So that's great. So now I know back then you had built what you called a personal brand. I think it was Mrs. Mista.
Mrs. Mista. My husband was Big Mista.
Yeah. And you found that when you started into the personal branding business, we'll call it, that didn't serve you anymore.
Because when I got into coaching. When I got into coaching, I thought it didn't serve me anymore.
Right.
I tried to lay it down, not necessarily not being Mrs. Mista, because no, that wasn't meant for that. But the person that I was, what I brought to the table as far as the flavor and the dynamic of how I worked.
Yeah.
I was so busy trying to get caught up in the description of being professional
Right.
that it's like, this does not feel right. I
Right.
can't talk the way that I want to talk. I'm trying to pronounce words right. It's like, oh shit. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to say that. It was too much.
Right.
And because I had never been the front person, Neil was always the front person of our business.
Okay.
And like I say, because it goes back to that insecure person
Yeah. Yeah.
of being thought of as that bitch, that sometimes I wouldn't even do TV stuff with Neil. When the first time they asked him to be on Barbecue Pitmasters, I'm not going on there. No, I'm gonna be the angry black woman in the corner. I will not give them that kind of television.
Right.
So it was still that insecurity, because even though I'm educated, even though I'm certified, even though I have all this knowledge, all I think is what people hear come out of my mouth.
Right.
And it just kept me in that insecurity. It was no longer about my body issues. Now it's like, oh, I sound like a fucking ghetto ass person. And it's like, it's a whole ass thing.
And people are going to be judging you, and you've got imposter syndrome because you know your shit. But you don't believe other people maybe believe it. And it's a vicious cycle.
Being Mrs. Mister back then also taught me some of the things that I teach my clients now. The reason I separate my personal brand from my personal life by a name is because I remember all the times I'm at the grocery store, and mind you, we shopped where we worked. And hey, Mrs. Mister, you got barbecue today? It look like I got some fucking barbecue. Come on now. And that was all anybody ever saw. That's all they knew me as. Right.
They didn't know the person. They knew the business, but they didn't know the person behind it.
And add that to the fact that Neil probably slept with Mrs. Mister more than he slept with Phyllis. Because I went to bed with my laptop. Hey, did you order that meat? It's 4:00 in the morning. Why are you harassing me, lady?
Right. Yeah.
So it was recognizing all the problems I had being Mrs. Mister, that I now say, you know what, this is the Getto Country Brandmother and this is Phyllis. Getto Country Brandmother is an empathic bitch, whereas Phyllis is a petty bitch. I know the difference.
Right. Okay.
And it's so I get to decide when I stop being her. And when I stop, no, you cannot step to me. Because back in the days of my Mrs. Mister days, somebody say, oh, well, can we talk business? Watch me work.
Right.
And I would do that. But now it's like, no, sweetie, I'm sitting down with my bourbon and my child or my husband or whoever.
Right.
I'm not trying to make no money right now. Evidently, I had enough money to pay for my drink, and that's all I need right now. I'm good.
Right. Now, did you find, though, you had to get to a certain point? Because let's face it, in the beginning, as entrepreneurs, we all become our business because we're solopreneurs to start with. So we're a one-man, one-woman show. We're doing it all. And so it's hard to separate that. It's hard not to be your business because you're living it, eating it, breathing it, trying to build it.
Yeah.
And at what point do you find that, that'll probably drive you to your grave, drive you to drink, whatever the hell it is. Where do you find that separation and how do you go about it?
I tell people now when I talk to my clients, you got to brand your way out of the day-to-day. And what that means is that you have to find all these different things. How you lead is not how you work. If I'm leading, I'm over here acting a whole different level over here because I'm networking, I'm talking, I'm representing, I'm speaking, I'm writing, I'm doing all these things. But as long as I'm a business of one, I'm also the one doing the work. But you cannot allow your employees to your clients to treat you like an employee.
Right.
It's like I'm representing the business right now. This is my thing. Because once you decide to grow and scale, they're going to still think that they're going to come to you for the work. And you got to stop them in their tracks before they even get started.
Right.
So if they recognize that, you know what, I'm talking to the Getto Country Brandmother and she's doing her thing right now. So when I decide to bring in other brand parents to do something else and be a different thing, you won't be dealing with me. I am not the employee of my business. I'm just happen to be a business of one. Don't get it twisted.
Right. Okay.
So if I have to talk to clients about, you know what, respect the game. Even stop saying, oh, it's just a little business. It's a side hustle. If it's making you some fucking money and it's going to get you out of a day-to-day and a 9-to-5 and get you on a vacation, sweetie, it's a business.
Right.
Respect your game. And so you get to start, if you start putting yourself in that frame of mind, then you'll begin to separate the two. Phyllis is over here working, or the Getto Country Brandmother is over here working. Phyllis is over here about to go have a bourbon and a cigar and sit on the porch.
Right.
That's it. But you have to start making those boundaries and those lines because, like I said, as Mrs. Mister, there was blurred lines all up and through. It wasn't no shades of gray. It was just fucking gray.
Yeah. Yeah. And that had to be tough though too. I mean, it's no different than, you know, your customers. If you look at them like your child, at some point, you know, with your children, you have to just lay boundaries and lay lines, especially when they get older, right? And they start coming back home and shit and you know, going into the fridge or doing whatever. At some point, you got to lay those boundaries.
Yeah.
And it probably causes a little bit of, I can't think of the word I'm looking for, but probably pisses some customers off because they're so used to dealing with Phyllis, not the Getto Country Brandmother, right? And now all of a sudden, what? She's too good for me. She's grown too big. Like, what's going on here, Phyllis? You ever get any kickback like that from clients you work with? They say, "Come on."
Believe it or not, I do not.
Good.
I do not. And that's why I say I lay it out up front. Like, even if you look on my LinkedIn bio, it says empathic bitch.
Right.
I'm letting you know, this is how I'm coming. This is how you're going to work with me. I have them sign a pledge. This is my house. Respect the house. When you come in here and it's a thing and okay, this is how you respect the house. Don't waste my time because you're wasting your money and there are no refunds in this house.
Right. Okay.
Recognize that if you feel like you know more than I do, then it's time for you to leave home.
Right.
How about that? And so I want you to be bold in your own way. And the thing I said, I'm all down for respectful rebellion.
Yeah.
And what that means is like, you know what? I respect what you said, but I'm not doing that. That's not me. That's you.
Right.
So you get to give me that pushback. You got all the space in the world. This is your money. I'm trying to build something for you, not for me.
Right.
So it's understood that, you know what? She gonna love me when she done fussing at me. Come on, let's get it. Let's get it.
Yeah. Awesome. So tell me, what is, I know you turn brand babies into brand leaders.
Brand leaders. Mm-hmm.
Tell me what a brand baby is. What's going on there?
Oh my goodness. My clients are my brand babies.
Okay.
There are people that want to be my brand babies. I was on a call and somebody said, I want to be an honorary brand baby. Then knock yourself out. You know what? But I do something that I call open house. Whereas most people have online communities and different things, whether it's on Facebook or it's paid for.
Yeah.
I found that does not work for me.
Okay.
So every other month, I have Brandmas open house. You can come in here. We're going to talk shit. We're going to drink. Whoever smoke weed, going to smoke their joint, their blunt, whatever. And we just going to chill and we're going to do our thing. We're going to talk about our business, but you can't ask me anything specific because people are always talking about know, like, and trust. You don't know me. You think you do by the content that I put out. Right. You get to come behind the scenes and ask me anything because I'm very transparent. The last call happened last week. We were on there from 4 to midnight, my time.
Wow.
That's how long we were on this call.
Right.
And the last 6 people that were in the room, it's usually the last 6 stragglers, but we get to talk about any and everything. We have people that will come in and they try to ask me a branding question. You can ask me a general question that'll benefit everybody, but you ask me specific. Well, how can I don't know how the fuck you can do that without paying me. That's what I know.
That's awesome.
But that's my community. That's my family. And where you find your connections within that family is totally up to you. One of the people that came, he just recently signed as a client of mine. And come to find out, because he had been coming to the Brandmas open houses before, 2 of the people in the room, and I did not know, had reached out to him. How can I help? I sent him a message. I called him. Right. Because this is your fam now. When we're back here, this is fam stuff. This is not we trying to sell each other. Don't come in here with your pitch. Hell, I don't even want to know what you do. All I want to know is what's your favorite drink. Right. So they know. If they don't know, they ask and they find out. Right. And if they don't out, I'm sure you're going to let them know one way or another, right? They're going to find out one way or another. So yes, FAAFO. Now, this is something I know you've said, and I love this, and it's jobs have paychecks, brands have value. Yeah. Right. Tell me about that. Because people, even today, just talking to people every day, they're always worried about my price. How much should I charge? Right. You're so fucking stuck on that number that you miss the opportunity to sell people on the value. Sweetie, I don't care what price you pull out of your ass. If you can't say it out of your mouth and add value to it,
Right.
it's just a fucking price.
Right.
You can't make anybody pay it. But when you're doing that, when you're saying that, you know what, this is the price, you're turning it into a paycheck instead of profit.
Right. Okay.
Because businesses thrive on profit.
Right.
Because if all you're making is enough to pay yourself and the business is not making any money, then all you did was made a paycheck. That was it.
Yeah.
You could have got a job and got a paycheck, probably could have got more.
Right.
And some pennies.
Yeah.
But
and only had to put in 8 hours instead of a full day.
Thank you. You actually get to take a weekend off.
That's right. Yeah.
But when you talk about turning it into a business, you can't be looking at paychecks. You got to look at profit. And a lot of people price themselves out of the profit. They never even consider, like, what is my profit margin? Do you even know what a profit margin is?
Right.
Because at the very least, if you're a business of one, it's still 3 folks that got to get paid. You got to get paid as the employee. You got to get paid as the boss. You got to get paid as the business. 3 of those.
Right.
This one gets a paycheck. This one gets a salary. This one gets profit. So when you decide that, oh, well, when I was working, I made $20 an hour and now I charge $100. So fucking what?
Yeah.
How does that get split up between the 3?
Right. Yeah.
Because if you're not putting money aside for the business, trust and believe your business is going to die.
Right. Yeah.
Like in your intro, when you talk about from entry to exit, most folks don't do the exit part.
No.
You don't know how you're going to get out of what you got into.
That's right. Yeah. I had a guest on not too long ago who is an actual, that's what his company does. He helps mid-sized businesses figure out an exit plan. Mm-hmm. And you find, there's too many, because we don't think about that. When we start businesses, we're not thinking about quitting it. Christ, I haven't even got it started. What the hell am I thinking about quitting for? Right? We teach people you don't quit, right? You can pivot, you can change, you can do whatever, but you don't quit. Mm-hmm. So now all of a sudden you're talking to me about an exit plan. That's when they put me in the freaking ground or whatever is going to happen, right? But it's true. You got to think it through from start to finish, because you never know. Look at how many of these companies get swallowed up by these bigger companies. And like you said, right, you don't want to be leaving millions on the table. Yeah. Because you can bet that they're a hell of a lot smarter than you are when the big boys are coming knocking on your door. Yeah. Right. So you need to
trust and believe. If you have a business model, I don't care how small you are. If you got a business model that catches somebody's eye, are you going to sell it? Did you even know it had that much value? Right. And then they're going to try and lowball you because you've never even thought about it. Yep. Because you can say, you know what, I'm going to build my business up to generating this much revenue, and then I'm going to sell it off for this amount of money. You can have that conversation with yourself. Sure. But folks won't do that. Right. When we got rid of Big Misters, we had people approach us about buying it. No, because my husband was Big Mister when I met him, not when I opened the business. Right. So for you to sit up here and tell me that, oh, I'm going to take Big Mister and he can't use the name anymore, fuck you and the horse you rode in on. Right. Yeah. That is not a possibility. Right. Now, had they put some zeros upon zeros behind it, oh, dude, your name going to be Neil from now on. Yeah. Right. But even at what they were offering, and like I said, I was still emotionally attached to the name. So it wasn't even an option to sell. We're just going to close. Right. Same thing with Brandmas House. I'm not, because I've learned my lesson, I'm not attached to Brandmas House like I was to Big Misters. Right. So if someone came along and offered enough based on the business model that I'm setting up, and based on me by next year licensing out the process to what I'm calling other brand parents. Yeah. Sweetie, this is how you get to run your business. Go do your thing and send me my check. Right. Yeah, because you, with all the knowledge, all the learning you've done, you've now learned to separate yourself from the business. Because like you said, Big Mister, that was Neil, right? Yeah. But now, like you say, no, this is business. This is business. And that's why I tell people, don't take personal branding personally. Right. When you decide that you are your brand, you're taking that shit personally. And this is why I was telling somebody today, we have people out here who have businesses who have an audience because they can't have a relationship. You putting all your business in the street because you are your brand. Yeah. Oh, I'm going on vacation. Watch me pose. And right. Really? If you're not posing when I tell you to sit down and explain my business to me, I don't need you posing to sell me anything.
Right.
Your lifestyle does not impress me. And maybe that's because I'm old as fuck and don't care.
Exactly. Yeah.
But I'm not impressed by lifestyle.
No.
I'm impressed by results. And saying, show me the receipts, bitch, I know how to doctor receipts. That
Exactly.
doesn't mean
Yes.
anything either.
I can make my bank account say whatever I want it to.
Really?
Yeah.
The IRS is looking for you right now. Come on.
Yeah. That's why it says 0. What are you talking about? I know who's looking. That's
But
funny.
yeah,
Okay.
It's different.
So talk to me about what are some of the key important parts of a personal brand? Like, I know we want to keep it separate from our personal life.
Mm-hmm.
So what are we looking at? What is that personal brand? Is it the way I dress, the way I speak, the way, like, what is this personal brand?
You were asking me about my podcast earlier. The first episode is actually talking about this. There's a cultural mix. And it's not saying, and I'm not talking about cultural heritage, but there's a cultural mix. There's some place where you stand that you're a fucking bold as hell, where you will stand up to your mama with a belt in her hand. She's like, I'm gonna whoop you. I'm not moving, mom.
Right.
If you know where that place is, that's what you need to put in your personal brand, because that's what's going to cause you to build a reputation that people respect.
Okay.
And so it's like, and like I said, Getto Country is my vulnerable place, but it's my place of power as well. Because I don't want to have to code switch how I speak, how I talk, how I act.
Right.
So Getto Country is my culture that I chose. I was raised hood adjacent by a country mama. And if I go back to the hood today, I want to make sure that I'm still okay. I can't go in there talking some kind of way.
Right. Yeah.
So I still will have respect for that game.
You're staying true to your roots.
I stay true to my roots.
Right.
Where somebody else is like, one of my clients, he's a rap artist, but he's starting a vaping business. And so we're because he's bold when he raps, because if you listen to him, you can tell he's a very shy guy, very laid back, very loner type. We're bringing his rap into his business. And because I asked him, where do you feel boldest? And he said, based on his rap name. So we're going to use a blend of his rap name along with his business. This is going to be a personal brand.
Right.
And this is how you're going to come across. And this is how you're going to make your money. And he's like, fuck, because it's a thing.
Right.
There's a blend or a mixture of some type of culture there that makes you like, I don't care if you got to talk to your clients while you're playing your guitar. Give them some fucking lyrics to sell your shit.
Right.
Because that's where you find power. Can't nobody play guitar like me. So if I'm doing this and I'm selling real estate, let me sing you a tune while I go show you this house. You better mosey your ass on down there with that guitar and go make your money.
Right.
So there's something about a cultural blend that makes you bold as hell, that no one can stop you. No one can shake you. It's like people will try and hate on you. And we know there are so many people out here hiding behind their keyboards trying to throw shade.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
But if you, like, say, coming from a person that was self-conscious, you can say what the hell you want to me.
Right.
I don't care. Because the thing that I know is you don't pay my bills and you don't provide my meals. So I don't give a fuck.
Right.
So if you find that place, that cultural mix that suits you, that you can stand on, that begins to solidify where you're going to stand in your within your personal brand. And for me, it's all about a code. And what I mean by code is contemplation, objectives, dedication, and ethics.
Okay.
Ethics is lacking so much.
Oh, yes. Yes. That's why I mentioned earlier, right? When you're willing to do whatever it takes to make a buck.
That part.
Right. Yeah.
But when you sit down, like business brands have vision statements. But when you talk about it from a personal brand perspective, when you talk about contemplation is an action. It's something that you actually have to do, which a lot of people don't realize. When you sit down and say, let me think about it, you're thinking about an answer that already exists, and then you try to fit into it. But if you're going to sit down and contemplate where you're going with your personal brand, you're going to have to sit down and meditate like, dang, how is this going to fit me?
Right.
Because I always talk about how is this going to impact your life, brand, and business.
Right. You're doing a little soul searching, getting to know yourself.
That part.
Right.
Because everything that you do in your business and a brand is going to impact your life. I don't care what you do. So when you sit down and you contemplate the future, when I contemplate the future for the Getto Country Brandmother, how does this going to impact Neil and Morgan? How does this impact the big business of how I'm going to grow?
Right.
And I have to sit down and let that settle with me. Okay, this is how I want to do it. They may do it that way, but this is how I want to do it.
Yeah.
So when you contemplate and you take action to let it come to you instead of trying to find an already existing answer, that's how you begin your journey.
Right.
So based on that contemplation, now let me set some objectives of how I'm gonna do this thing. So I'm gonna sit out here and I'm gonna plan it out based on what I can do as the personal brand. We haven't even gotten to the business yet. We're talking about you.
Right.
The objectives for this personal brand. Are you trying to get invited somewhere? How are you going to close that gap from where you are to getting invited to that thing? There has to be some objectives that are aligned with that contemplation that you had. And then once you have this other part, there's something that you dedicate yourself to. Because there's a difference between dedication and commitment. I'm committed to my husband to a certain degree because, you know what, there's a marriage certificate there.
Right.
But I'm dedicated to that dude because, you know what, I live and breathe him every day.
Right. Yes. And no paper's going to change that.
No paper's going to change that.
Right. Yeah.
And that's what dedication is. So when you have a personal brand that's dedicated to something, it is different than when you're committed to it, because we can divorce ourselves from some committed shit.
Right.
And then your ethics, baby, what's gonna make you not cross that line?
Right.
Boundaries are all up and through a personal brand, and people miss that. They like, especially when you go out and say, I am my brand, then there are no boundaries. You can't get pissed off when somebody come at you wrong.
Right.
You can't be mad because, well, you said, why are you in my business? Because you let them in your business. You opened the front door because you said, I am my brand. You showed me your vacations. You showed me the license plate on your car.
Yeah.
And you wonder why I'm knocking on your door? Sweetie, you're the brand.
Right.
I came for a visit. But when you establish the ethical parts of the contemplation, the objectives, the dedication, and get over here to the E of it all, it's like, okay, now I got to set up my boundaries. You can't come this far and I won't go this far.
Right.
I had to laugh at myself because my husband made me an amazing breakfast the other day. And I talk about people. I'm like, don't nobody give a fuck about your breakfast on the beach and that. But I wanted to share my breakfast. But I said, if you do, you're a fucking hypocrite.
Yeah.
You sat up there and you drag people all this time for this.
Right. For doing the same thing. Yeah.
For doing the same thing.
Yeah.
So my boundaries as a Getto Country Brandmother, I'm sorry, y'all can't see my breakfast.
Right.
It was good, but you can't see it.
Yeah, what were you telling me earlier? It was some bacon candy or some damn thing. Eh? That's what you're having for breakfast. I know it. That and a bourbon. Absolutely. So I think what you were just talking about is part of, and see if I get this right, your solopreneur scaling system. Is that right? Because I know there's three parts to that.
Yes.
Brand identity, brand ego, and brand image. And I think the code was part of the brand identity.
Brand identity, right? Yes.
So can we talk on the other two kind of briefly?
Sure.
You don't need to go into too much, but you let us know.
No problem.
There's three parts to it, so I want to know what the three parts are. Code was, I'd seen code, but I didn't know what it stood for, and that's awesome.
Yes. Yeah. So when you talk about brand ego is how you set up camp. Because if you got enough ego, you're going to say it with your whole chest, but you're going to be genuine about it. So when we talk about setting up camp, we're talking about how you communicate with the audience that you have so that you can market to them to set your position. That's your camp.
Okay.
So what's your communication style? What's your communication medium? All these things have to be taken into consideration. What words are they going to know you for?
Right.
There's something there. So how are you going to communicate? How much sense of humor? Do you have a sense of humor? Are you that sexy so-and-so that's going to say something to them? What is your communication style, your medium? All these different things need to be considered so that you can communicate with this audience. The audience is how are you going to develop this audience? So many people are always talking about, even people that don't know shit. Oh, who's your ideal client? Fuck an ideal client. Let me get to the audience.
Right.
If I know my audience, then my client will emerge. Because we try and create these niches that we don't even know anything about. Oh, you got a niche down. How about you niche down into the audience? Tell me who your audience is.
Right. Okay.
Mine are shiny object chasers. They got too much shit on their plate. They want to get out of the day-to-day. I can talk to my audience.
Right.
Now, the people who are willing to emerge as my ideal client out of that, they've already seen my website. They've seen my content. Oh, I know she coming like a Brandma. I know she going to do this thing. So you already know. So you're my ideal client. I didn't have to choose you. You chose me.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Makes sense.
And then I get over here and I got the way I communicate, the audience I communicate to. So I got to market to them.
Right.
So what are you marketing? Are you advertising? Do you have more time than money, or do you have more money than time? I personally don't like advertising because you have to keep doing it in order to stay in front of people.
Yes.
But if you have more time than money, then sweetie, you need to be putting out some content. And I hate content creation as a
So
just
do
as an
I.
aside. Oh
Yeah.
my God, I really do.
Yeah.
But I don't consider myself a content creator, but I do put out my shit to market. To get over that mindset, what do I have to market today to make my money? If I don't get up off my ass and say something to this crowd that I adore, that I love, that I say that these are my brand babies,
Yeah.
I'm doing them a disservice. So that's what I have to market to them. And then we get over to the P of setting up your camp. How are you positioning yourself? Because if nobody knows your prices, and I'm not saying you got to put them all out there on Front Street if you don't want to, that's your game. But what is it that you're selling that's so unique? Probably not shit, because there's nothing new under the sun. I'm sorry.
Right. No, absolutely.
But there's some kind of way that you do it, that you package it, that you put it back together, that you took it apart and made it your thing. You put your stank on it, as my daddy used to say.
Right. Yeah.
There's something about that positioning that puts you right there, smack dab in all of this. And so now you've taken that brand ego to set up camp in a way that's conducive to you. And then the final piece is your brand image. I used to see shit when I first started studying brand strategy. Brand image was what people perceived. I don't give a fuck what you perceive. If your perception is wrong, let me clear it up for you.
Absolutely. I'm totally in
my goodness,
agreement with that.
Where did y'all get this from? Did you not look up image when you said that?
Yeah.
So when we talk about brand image, we're going to talk about how you play the game. So we got personality, we got language, we got archetypes, and we got yarn. And some folks aren't old enough to know what a yarn is. A yarn is a story.
A story, right.
So how are you going to play this game? So if I have a certain level of personality, if my personality is dry as hell, how can I work the hell out of some dry ass content to go make my money? If you one of those voluptuous chicks and all that kind of stuff and sexy just ooze off of you unintentionally, then sweetie, that's your personality. But then how are you going to use this archetype? Because the archetype forms a love language between you and your audience, because your archetype may be this and their archetype is that. So how do you get to create this love language where you talk to how the fuck you want to and they hear it how they want to hear it?
Right.
There has to be a love language between those two archetypes. And they will get down with you and they will be faithful with you, because people act like all of my clients are Black. Trust and believe, they are so not. Oh, she like them hood people. You would be surprised how many of my clients are not hood.
Right.
But it's the archetype mix, because I speak the language that I want to speak, but I speak the words that they want to hear. So the archetype it fits. But it, like, I skipped one, I'm sorry. Going back to the language. Okay. We already had the communication over here, how we communicate, but now we got to turn it into a language that they understand.
A language, right? Yeah.
Yes. And so that language comes across that's true to you. How are you going to come across? How do you best communicate? Because we already know what you're going to communicate based on this, but then what language are you going to use to make that communication happen? You have to have your own language. The words that you use, and we're not talking jargon. People can talk jargon all day long.
Right.
But there's a language that comes out of this that is so true to you that, oh, I fucks with that. That's what you hear people say. Because that personality, that language will help you find out your archetype. But if you did the audience work over here, you get a better understanding of your audience once you understand their archetype.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
And you take that archetype and you can still plant more of that back into the language. I know what they're looking for. I know how to do that. I know how to
speak to them. Right.
And you had that original code. That original code is where your core message should come from. That core message gets tied to the very end. That very beginning gets tied to the end, whereas the yarn, which is the storytelling. How do I use that core message to tell all these different stories? How do I spin this tale? How do I spin this yarn? So you code, camp, and play. That's how you do it.
Wow. That's amazing. I mean, just that in itself, it's like, holy cow, like there's so much to it, but it seems, when you spell it out just the way you did, it just makes so much sense, right? Yeah. But I don't think you could do them in any different order.
No.
The way you've laid it out, yeah, it makes sense. You gotta commit, you gotta do the steps.
Gotta have that identity.
Yeah.
That identity feeds your ego,
That
a
ego.
healthy ego. We're
Yeah.
not talking arrogance.
Right.
So that you know how to play the game and have this image.
Image,
because you're going to project an image. The image is, I don't care how it's perceived, it just has to stay consistent and true to you. This is how you play the game.
Right.
What my dad used to tell my mom, because my dad was a cheater, he used to tell me, I don't care what you saw, I didn't do it.
It wasn't me. Oh, that's funny. That's so funny.
And I hear strategists all the time asking, like, how do you do strategy for a personal brand? And there's like, do it the same way you do for a business. No, you can't.
No.
Because now you're talking about a person. You're talking on a much smaller scale, and you have to tap in. So this is why life coaching within what I do helps me. Whereas most brand strategists, they like just spit all the shit at me. I'm gonna give you all these statements and I'm gonna send you out into the world.
Mission statements and values and
all of that shit.
Yeah, right.
But sweetie, no, we gonna code camp and play, because we're gonna get this shit together. Because I need you to go out here thumping your chest and being proud of what you're producing. I don't need you to be a dick about it.
Yeah.
I don't need you to be arrogant about it. I need you to tell your truth, speak your truth, be self-aware, and understand that personal brands evolve.
Right.
So as you go from brand baby to brand leader, sweetie, how you lead is going to change, because you're going to start putting yourself in new atmospheres, in new rooms, and new crowds. And everybody that's over here at the beginning is going to think, oh, well, you think you're too good. No, I'm not good. I'll be back.
Yeah.
But I also need you to catch up, because I need to hear this in order to continue to grow.
Right.
If I hear this same stale shit day in and day out, guess what? I'm going to be right here with you, and I'm not staying.
Yeah. Yeah.
I ain't telling you got to keep up, but I'm telling you I'm not going to stand here on this shit.
Right. Right. And there comes a point too when you got to realize that, excuse me, everybody's in our lives for a reason, and it may not be to take the entire journey.
That part.
Right? I may have to leave you there.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with that. Right?
No, I still love you. I told him I can wave at you from across the street.
Yeah. I gotta fly. I gotta
go.
Yeah. No, that's
the reason, a season, or a lifetime. That's what I was told.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a great analogy right there. Listen, I know you are also an author.
Yes.
Yes, you are. Why don't you tell me about some of the stuff you've written?
Oh, God.
And we'll try and keep it clean just for the show. But tell me about some of the stuff. No, tell me about some of the stuff you've written. I know you got a book too that you wanted to talk about. So.
My first book I wrote with my daughter. That was a children's book. But then I turned a story into a memoir. Okay. Because my daughter started to blossom early. Right. So we started having conversations early, because I was not going to let her be like me. My mom never talked to me about sex and all that kind of stuff. And I was not going to be that mom. Right. So we started having these conversations when she was 9. And so taking all of those conversations, I put them in a book, and it was meant to be funny. The funny conversations you have with your daughter about this thing. But then in all of that, it was like, why am I so jacked up? And I had to go and unravel all those stories as to why I'm talking to my daughter, to teach her to be independent, to teach her to be strong, to not ignore the hairs when they stand up on the back of your neck. Right. And so I ended up writing that damn girl stuff. And it wasn't until I was writing that book, because I wrote the first edition and I had to go back and fix it, because I left out an important story. And it was the truth I had to tell my daughter of why you should pay attention when those hairs stand up on the back of your neck. Right. And it was a lie that I had held on to for years and years. My daughter was the first but she was the first person that I told the truth to.
To hear the truth.
Right. So after I told her dad, this is the truth about what happened. Right. And that was my first book. And now it's like, if somebody reads it, fine. If they don't, still fine. Yeah. But it was written for my daughter. But 2, it was written for all these girls who, like me, had the whole dick and dick situation because of insecurities and low self-esteem. Sweetie, don't let that define you. Right. I'm not saying that the hurt, the pain, the shame, or whatever is going to forever go away, but don't let it define you. Right. And so that's what that book is for. Yeah. And too many people do hold on to that. Right. And, not knowing the depth of the story, but at some point, like you say, you can't let it define you. It's going to eat you up, and it's a moment in time. It's not,
the entire time.
It's that part.
And it helps, as much shit as we may go through in our lives, it makes us who we are. So,
Yeah.
embrace it, learn from it.
Mhm.
Don't dwell on it, because it's just going to eat you up.
Definitely.
So,
Yeah.
so,
And
so
that
sorry to jump in there, but
no, 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 no,
continue on.
no. And that is the real thing, because I had to learn not to wallow in shit,
Right.
because I was the one that was holding on to it. I can't blame I won't say I can't. I choose not to blame any of the men that I had encounters with.
Right.
They did what I allowed them to do.
Right.
Except the one that took it. The rest, you know what? It's not them. I'm not blaming them. I'm not ever going to say a man is a dog, because I am married to a very good man.
Right.
My daddy, even in all his shit, was a very good man. And there are so many good men out here. So defining them by the bad choices that you make.
Right. Yeah.
I'm not playing that game with you. I'm not. I went from that to my last book was Balance is Bullshit, because I found that out in my business. I get so tired of people and they like, and I think it's because I take that shit so literally. There is nothing balanced about life. Life is meant to be lived, not balanced.
Right.
Now, because you want an extra day off, or you think your boss is working you too hard, and that's not balanced. That's just taking a fucking day off. It's still all your life. So it's this one is about, just make a fucking decision.
Yeah.
If it's the wrong decision, you find that out after the fact, and then you do something different.
Right.
But be okay with the decision. Like you just said, I'm not going to sit here and wallow in a bad decision.
No.
Especially as a business owner, because it will keep you stuck. You have to learn to take calculated risks in business, not just risks.
Not just risks. Right.
And so when you take those calculated risks, one of the like I said, that book for me, I felt like a failure as a mom, because I worked more than I spent time with my daughter.
Right.
But I had to let go of that shit, because it's like me and my daughter have a bomb-ass relationship. She tells me too much shit sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah.
She talks to me about damn near everything. And I'd rather have those conversations than the Disneyland trips.
Yes, absolutely.
I'd rather have her trust me enough to say, Mom. It's just like she was recording a promo for the podcast that's coming up, and she wanted her dad to leave the room. I've heard her cuss. Her dad has not. She wanted her dad, like, you tell dad to go away. I said, why? I said, babe, she think you're going to be traumatized by her using cuss words. But she's that kind of kid. And so forth. And like, even she went to spend the night at a friend's house, and she's texting me, and she called me and she said, Mom, can I cuss? I said, yes. She said, that is some white ass spaghetti.
She got some vanilla for supper, did she? Oh, that's funny.
But she's that kid. I'm not saying she hasn't had her missteps as a kid and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
But she still, we talk about everything. And I'd rather have those conversations than some fake ass vacation.
Absolutely.
And all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I know that she trusts me, and I trust her to a certain degree, but she's a teenager. So I got them leery moments. But
right.
Still.
Yeah. Yeah. But you know what? You've had the talks that you didn't get, right?
Yeah.
So you can feel a little more comfortable in what path she's going to go down. And and you know what? She may get the wrong choice made. Yeah. And you're there in her corner to help her through it if some shit happens. So
but that was the biggest thing behind Balance is Bullshit. Like I said, because if I had let all of those missed moments, and even in being a wife and being a daughter, my mom's like, when you going to spend time? I got so much parental guilt, because even my mom was writing me about not spending enough time with my daughter. And mind you, my daughter's been homeschooled since 4th grade. So she's always,
yeah.
She sits across from me in here sometimes. Right. She's now in the 10th grade. She's still sitting here doing schoolwork. Yeah. And I got to sit here and I got to watch her dance. How can you concentrate? And oh my God.
Yeah.
And I had to realize I never stopped being her parent just because I was working.
Right.
But I can't go back and fix all the times where I said, give me 5 more minutes, and 5 more minutes turned into all day.
Yeah.
So, you know what? I had to learn to be okay with those decisions.
Right.
How can I'm not looking for a silver lining in it. I'm not going to sit here and say, well, I did what I had to do. No, it just is what it is.
Yeah.
So now, do I make different decisions or better decisions? Yeah. I got a paycheck. I'm like, oh, baby, let's go blow a paycheck.
Right.
What are we going to go do? She gets to pick.
Yeah.
Those are decisions.
Right.
Am I blowing off a day of work? You damn right I am. Because like I say, I had to realize I never stopped being a mother. I never stopped being a wife. I never stopped being a daughter. How you perceived me in those roles
Right. Yes.
was your thing.
Yes.
So it's like, just learn to be okay with the decision. So that's what balance is bullshit about. And right now I'm working on what is called branding, boundaries, and bullshit. And it's, and it's going to incorporate the code camp and play.
Okay.
But it's like all of these different things that we're told about branding as a personal brand. How PR has been perceived. PR is, so it's an image consultant. It's making you look good.
Making you look like
brand,
what the audience wants to see,
Yeah.
not who you actually
not
are.
what really is.
Right.
And while I'm not a fan of putting all your business in the street, don't put that fake ass shit on.
Right.
And PR people have to run out and they have to chase people to let you come walk their red carpet. Somebody had to go chase them down for you to get on the red carpet.
Yeah.
Instead of somebody actually inviting you and all that kind of shit.
Right.
But like I say, I want to change the game of personal branding. So when I talk about the bullshit of being a brand, when I talk about the bullshit of trying to brand like a business, all of these type of things, that's some bullshit. And not setting boundaries from Jump Street means you got to keep fixing crisis after crisis. If I told you I was fucked up in the beginning, if I told you that I'm not going to dwell on the fact that say if I was a junkie, and no, I wasn't, but if I was a junkie back in the day, you know what, let me put my cards on the table, because I don't need you trying to drag this out 20 years later saying,
right,
oh, well, she was a junkie.
Yeah.
My problem with men. Right. If you want to read about it, it's in the book. Yeah. Because you can no longer use shit like that as a weapon.
Against me, right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've come to peace with it. I've come to terms with it, and you can't use it as a weapon.
You can't.
Right.
But neither do you have to bring all of that baggage with you into your personal brand. It's a part of your life, but it's not that's my personal life.
Right.
And while I may admit to it, sweetie, I'm not bringing it to the table.
Yeah.
There's a difference. So where are the boundaries that you're setting for yourself?
Right.
When you decide that, oh, well, my client called me at 3 a.m. because he needed a revision because the boss was on his back, and you actually got up and did it, you're not setting boundaries.
No.
When you decide that I've watched 2 different versions of this. Women that can't pronounce another woman's name. Oh, I'll just call you so-and-so. No. Right. Set the boundary. Call me by my name.
Yes. I'll help you learn how to pronounce it.
But there's all of these different things that are being missed when we talk about personal branding, especially when you decide that you are your brand. Sweetie, if you want to hype yourself up, go ahead. I'm just not playing that game anymore. You can't sit up here and, oh, I'll knock that chip off your shoulder. Go ahead. Now, knocking it off of GC's shoulder is a whole lot different than knocking it off of Phyllis' shoulder.
Right.
So whose shoulder are you going to knock it off of? You really want to play that game?
Yeah.
I heard, was it Bishop, is it not Blake? Oh my God, I can't, whoever has the Potter's house, but he was giving his sermon one day and he said, if you spit on me, you might get prayed for, or you might get punched.
Right.
So recognize. And so it's just understanding that this branding game, there needs to be boundaries around personal branding, and recognize what's bullshit. When people are telling you all of these different things and you're packing all of your life into a personal brand, sweetie, that ain't nobody's business. And now you feel overwhelmed, burned out, doing too much, content creation, can't keep your phone out of your food.
Yeah. And
enjoy your life.
Right.
I want people to get back to a personal life. Keep some shit and some secrets for yourself. You're entitled.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, you know what? We could probably keep talking. We've obviously just scratched the surface. I mean, personal branding, there's so much to it because, like you say, there's so much that you need to put in, but there's so much shit you need to keep out.
Yeah.
Right. And knowing where that boundary is, a lesson in its own. So,
yeah.
Phyllis, this has been great. Like, I tell you what, I've had a lot of fun on today's show, and I learned some shit, and I thank you for that. Any last words you want to leave the audience with about personal branding, about, whatever? The floor is yours.
The only thing I want to leave people with is watch who you listen to. Don't try to listen to everyone because you're going to get 100 different answers 100 different ways. Find people that you trust and stick with it. If you trust me, Chris, Joe Blow, whoever, if you trust Reggie, listen to Reggie and other people like Reggie. And I'm not talking about, because unconscious bias can become a thing,
Right.
but we're not talking about biases. We're talking about how are you going to move forward in your business. Find you no more than 3 to 5 people to trust and stick with that. When you start Googling 10 different things and everybody's showing up,
Yeah.
don't try to watch all 10. Find 5 folks you trust and listen to them and roll with that. Once you get to a new level, sweetie, find you 5 new people. Just keep it pushing.
Right. That's
That's
great.
what I will leave people with.
Yeah, no, that's great advice. Like you say, you can become overwhelmed, and social media is terrible for that.
Yes.
And that's why they look at places like TikTok and that, where it's if you've done more than a 15-minute reel or whatever the hell they call them, you've lost people because they've already gone on. They've already gone on because they're waiting to see what the next thing is instead of just paying attention to that one person had to say. So
Yeah.
that's great advice. I appreciate it. If people want to know more about you, and I'll put this in the show notes, but if people want to know more about you, your business, how can they get a hold of
I'm
you?
most active on LinkedIn under my real name, Phyllis Williams-Strawder. I do stuff occasionally on Instagram. I'm not chasing any algorithms, but you can find me on Instagram under GC Brandmother. You can find me on TikTok under GC Brandmother. You find me on Twitter under GC Brandmother, but you can also just holler at brandmashouse.com. That's my email. If you ever have a question that I can answer for free,
Yeah.
because I don't do a whole lot of shit for free, just know. Go ahead and drop me a line. I'm all for it. This is my thing. I love it.
That's awesome. Well, listen, I've loved having you on the show. And before we wrap things up, I want to leave my listeners with my golden nugget. I always leave them with a little something to chew on at the end. And the best preparation for tomorrow is doing your best today. Small steps lead to big things, and even dreaming about having your own business is one of these first small steps. A lot of people, they get into, oh, I can't do that. Dreams come true. Believe it, right? It's all the planning and work that you do every day, no matter how small or trivial it may seem, because especially when you're starting a business, there is a lot of small and trivial shit that you think, why am I even doing this? But if you put your best foot forward every step of the way, you're going to thank yourself for the strong foundation you set when it comes time to turn those dreams of business ownership into a reality. With that being said, Entrepreneur Nation, I want to thank you on behalf of Phyllis, on behalf of myself, for letting us into your world, for sharing some stories, for having some laughs. I've had a great time with Phyllis. She's an amazing human being. I'm gonna have to get down to Texas again, and maybe I'll have some barbecue and some bourbon and one of those big ass cigars. Grandmother loves her cigars, so
Yes.
I got to get me one of those too. But listen, you know what? If you haven't done it yet, hit that subscribe button. We're doing this. We're gonna get you to where you need to be and where you want to be. Other than that, Entrepreneur Nation, I thank you. Continue doing what you do, and we'll talk to you soon.